Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video. Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you're looking to make your own website with everything in one place, you're going to want to try out Squarespace. I will talk more about them later on in the video. So in today's video, I wanted to show off the MIYA Gouache palette that I got recently. I saw an artist on Instagram who purchased this. I believe she goes by Daisy Karen. I'll put a link in the description. But I didn't know they made a jelly gouache palette that was that big. And from what I saw, the colors looked really nice. So I went ahead and bought it just because I am a sucker for pretty art supplies. And I also really want to practice working with gouache without the fear of wasting any of my nice Holbein gouaches or anything like that, because I'm one of those people who really like treasure my art supplies when I really shouldn't. They're just tools. But either way, I purchased this palette. I believe it was around $30, and I love it. I already tried the other jelly gouache from the HIMI brand. It's a smaller palette. I believe I show it off later on in this video too. I really liked that gouache as well. It was a little bit of a messy palette, and it was a lot smaller, so the colors were more limited. But I still really liked it, and after I saw the colors available in this palette, I just had to have it. So this palette is huge. I think it's more, even though it has a handle on it, I think it's more of a studio palette. I wouldn't try to bring this for traveling or anything. I'm not even sure how many colors are in it. I will check later on, but I love the range of blue greens and purples in this palette. There's a lot of pastels as well, and I really like the muted colors that they have too. I feel like the grayish versions of the colors are really good for shading. It's just nice to have such a big variety. So I went ahead and opened these little jelly gouaches, and there was a lot of paint left on the lids, so I just ended up wiping some of my favorite colors onto a piece of paper, just kind of like a swatch palette kind of thing. I was thinking about rearranging the colors, because I usually do that. I stick all of my favorite colors on one side, but I actually really love how they arranged this palette. It just looks so nice, so I left it exactly how it was, with the cooler colors on the right side and the pastels near the bottom. It just looks so nice. So like I said, I've been really wanting to practice and get better at painting with opaque paints. I usually paint with watercolors, and I started off painting with acrylics when I was in high school, so I'm kind of used to painting with opaque paints, but I don't do a lot of artwork that doesn't have any lines, and I'm not used to doing portraits like that either, so I wanted to practice. So this palette came with some styrofoam attached to the lid. I saw reviews complaining about how the styrofoam would touch the paints and get really messy. And people were also complaining about mixing space. but I don't really think that's an issue for me, just because it's a studio palette and I already have palettes in my studio, so it's not really an issue for me. So I ended up just taking off the foam so it didn't make the palette messy, and I suspect that the foam is there to keep some of the moisture in, so I'm just gonna have to spray the paint down and mix it up more often than normal. But here is the HIMI gouache palette that I had before, the other jelly gouache, and as you can see, I used the detachable mixing area from the lid, and after I used it, the paint dried on the palette, and then once I closed it up again, it became moist from the water in the palette and re-wet all of that paint on the lid, and then that paint just got everywhere, so it got really messy. Otherwise, I really love those paints. Supposedly the paint in this MIYA Gouache palette is a little bit cheaper of quality than the one in the HIMI palette, which makes sense. Like, you get a lot more for how much money you spend, and it's also, some of it is a little bit more transparent. Certain colors are opaque, but some of them are transparent, and there's probably a lot of filler, especially since it's a jelly gouache. There's going to be a lot of filler either way. So these aren't like professional grade paints, I would say. They are more for practicing and just having fun, really. I ordered some other brushes to go with the gouache as well. I noticed back when I was in school that using bristle brushes helped a lot, especially when working with oils. So I thought they might help a little bit with working with thicker paints than I'm used to. I don't know, for some reason this type of brush really just holds a lot of paint and really helps you spread it around more than a synthetic brush does. So I bought this little set from, I think HIMI sells that set, but I'm gonna put links to everything in the description so you guys can find it. The bristle brushes are really good for holding paint better, but they're more of a rough sketch painting kind of brush. It's good for blocking in shapes, but not really good for painting details or anything, so it's good to have a variety of brushes. And I'm also painting, this whole video I'm painting on the Artesia watercolor sketchbook. I love how the sketchbook looks and the thickness of the paper, but the paper isn't really that great. It really lifts and rolls up when you rub on it a lot, especially on the back sides. But it's decent for sketching and for practicing for painting, so I don't mind it. It definitely doesn't hold up with using tape though. So I thought that this jelly gouache was supposed to be a acrylic gouache, but I realized that it's actually just like a regular gouache. And if you don't know the difference, regular gouache gets pretty wet and you can work with it once it's dry, which has its own perks. But when you try to layer one color over another color, it will activate the color underneath and it'll start mixing in. Some paints do it more than others. These ones aren't that bad, where if you just put one thick layer over the top and don't mess with it too much, it's not going to activate what's underneath, but it will do it eventually, so you can use that to your advantage if you'd like. And acrylic gouache dries permanent like acrylics do, but it has the feel and texture of gouache. So I guess it's just preference, really.
by something we can't see. I was out in the night when something grabbed me. I swear it hurt. Kind of felt like something cold, but it stabbed streets are playing with my mind. I'm losing everything in sight. Time stands still as we go blind. We're losing everything. Streets are playing with my mind. I'm losing everything in sight. Time stands still as we go blind. We're losing everything.
Like I said earlier, today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website building platform that allows you to create your own website and have everything you need all in one place. I've used Squarespace for years and more recently started using their online store within my website, and it is one of the best decisions I've made. My favorite things about using Squarespace and having my online store there, it's super easy to edit photos and update my portfolio. Squarespace really caters to artists in that they let you import your photos straight from social media. So if Instagram is your main social media that you post your artwork on, you can just import your photos straight from there, and it's so easy. My other favorite thing is that the Squarespace store also integrates with other programs. There's a whole list of things you can use, but I use ShipStation for my online shop. So when I get an order, Squarespace processes it and sends it to ShipStation, where I can view it, pack it, weigh it, and print out a label. And ShipStation will send out a confirmation email and shipment notification with tracking number all on its own. I don't have to do anything. It's so helpful. I don't know how many years I was having to do all of that manually. Other than that, the templates are always beautiful, easy to use. They're great for artists and people who need portfolios or galleries. And another thing is that they have award-winning customer service. It's available 24 hours. So if you're like me who likes to edit my website at 4 a.m., there's always somebody there to help you. So if you want to try out Squarespace, they have a free trial. And if you like it, you can go to squarespace.com/Jacquelin and get 10% off your first purchase. Thanks again to Squarespace for continuing to sponsor my videos. Overall, I'm really happy with this paint set. Like I said, I love the colors. I love the grayish muted colors that are great for mixing in. And I love how the palette looks. The paint isn't amazing. It's definitely better than the MIYA Gouache that I tried out before. Way less chalky and brighter. It's not going to compare to Holbein or anything that's really high-end, but this palette is pretty awesome and it's easy to use and great for practicing. So if you're like me and you want to get better at gouache, I would fully recommend any of the jelly gouaches that you can find. One thing I noticed is that some of the thicker paint layers that I left, not in this painting, but on the little swatch smear palette that I did, some of the paints that were thicker did crack. I don't think jelly gouache is very good for putting texture down, so if you are somebody who likes to paint really thick and leave paint strokes and everything, maybe regular gouache is better for you, because yeah, this one will crack. The best tip I can give for people trying out gouache is to make sure you have a good consistency with the paint. So whenever I grab a little brush full of paint, I'll lay it down and then I will dip my brush into the water without tapping it off or dabbing it on the napkin. I will just dip it in the water and then mix that water with the paint, and it gives it a really nice fluid consistency that's still very opaque and easy to work with. You can use the gouache straight out of the pot, but it's going to be a little bit thick and it's not going to spread as far. So I always recommend putting a little bit of water with every dab of paint. No, This palette is not sponsored or anything. MIYA didn't contact me at all. I just saw another artist using it and wanted to try it out. So just a heads up. I had so much fun, and I'm actually really happy with how the hair turned out in this painting. I'm so excited to work on more portraits soon. Another thing I wanted to show you guys is my shipping area upgrades with a new standing desk. Flexispot reached out and they wanted me to try out one of their electric standing desks. And I've never had a standing desk before. I usually just use pretty cheap desks all the time, but this one is so nice. So I cleared out a space in my studio. Steven helped me install the legs and the little motor. It has a huge range of heights that you can use, so it's good for people of all heights, even if you're super tall. I wanted to put it in my shipping area because sometimes we get tired sitting all day and packaging orders, and it's good to stand up. It's also great to have a higher table for when you're cutting prints, so I'm probably going to end up using it as a cutting table. But it's really nice, super high quality. I've never had a desk this fancy before. Flexispot also sent me a coupon code for you guys, so if you want to try out their desk, that will be in the description as well. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun filming it and painting the portrait. I'm already excited to paint more. Well, I hope you guys are staying safe out there. Thank you so much for watching and happy holidays. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!